the couch, but he discovered that we are not super motivated to go check on him in the living room.
All the
in middle of
tables
the night. So just- He takes a note to that, or when we.
Wow, that's
He's on the
impressive.
couch. And we just got new couches, so like we cover them with blankets, just to
Yeah.
make sure that if he does anything, that it gets on the blanket. So, I'll check on him.
Okay. Let's get it back. Yes. I really hope that the owl and that's where the dog at some point during the meeting. John is be excited. Yeah. It's like a double right there. It's right
Yeah.
Need introductions for the dog.
Yes, definitely.
Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Because, oh, maybe. What?
What, did you ask something?
Oh, no.
I just said she's gonna be.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. We had, hobby day at Clover Ridge today, so we had a dog and a goat.
Oh.
That's fine.
I didn't bring a goat.
I took her home before bargaining.
Sure.
Oh,
There we go.
Yeah, I ran her home.
Oh, that's cool.
I also was saying, I've gotta figure out, I think it's gonna be my mom and I's next sewing project to figure out how to make goat diapers that will actually fit. Because we tried all kinds of iterations today and nothing worked.
Yeah, that's the problem with bringing goats inside.
Yeah. Yeah, no. No problems.
My goat would not get in a vehicle or a trailer. Or, I mean, I could do it, but it would take a lot. And chasing.
To get it in a trailer?
Yeah, they're tame, I have two goats and they're tame enough that like we can pet them. But like,
Oh.
like contain them or
Yeah,
put them somewhere they're not used to,
mine are all leash trained. For collars, cause they, well, not everybody has, but most of them have been to at least one show. So they've had the whole leading them around thing.
we were not disciplined enough with them and probably will not get there. But they're still fun to have.
Yeah. Well, she's super sweet at home, but as soon as I put her in the trailer or put her in the truck, in the crate, she was just carrying on and it was like shaking when we were there, but it was so fun.
Ah,
Is it just that this day?
Yeah, it's like, no.
Oh, there you go.
Wherever it goes, in my sense, you're gonna see.
I'm so stunned. Actually, it was one of the teachers of hearing impaired. Last week after bargaining on Friday, I was at transition meeting and I wasn't sure, but he didn't have a badge on. I didn't know he worked for the ESC. And he goes, did I see you at bargaining last night? And I'm thinking, why? No, I didn't have anything to do with any Albany bargaining. I don't know what you're talking about. And then later when he said, he's like, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I saw you on the camera. And I'm like, it was, yeah. And then I was like, oh, once I found out who he was, then I was like, oh gosh, I'm such a dork. I had no idea what you're
Like
talking
his little kiddo was talking one night on the.
about. Oh.
And I was like, it's usually bad time.
We have no problem tonight. Her son is graduating or whatever, so. Yeah. Yeah, but, we have, as far as articles ready, we're ready to TA on Article 1. And I think we're ready to TA on Article 7 with a very minor change of, there was like one strike through of full-time and a definition of employee. Somebody should make sure that I'm not lying. But I think it was kind of towards the end. In brief. Oh, this part on there, it's already structured, so, yeah, I think we're just ready to TI on those two. And then we do have a counter for our 15 as well. So,
We have 16 and 17
okay,
in with appendices,
okay,
and so we'll have those to present.
I guess before we do TA stuff, is there any clarification that's needed around the email we sent about the timeline of the 12th? Okay,
I mean, I think for TAing those two tonight, the one question that we have is, we know we had a really good, rich discussion about 6. And so we also kind of, after that discussion, looked at 6 again, just from the perspective of the discussion. And so, but because it sits currently with you, we don't want to necessarily like bring another version up.
got it.
So if you have a version of it to get back to us, we could add the things that we have been thinking about. So that would be one that we would be ready to take whatever you put into it and then we can put some stuff back.
I think when we have some caucus time, we can kind of talk through how we want to approach that. We floated the idea of like continuing to have conversations and depending on like the direction of things, maybe we go to like supposals where we're developing language together collaboratively, but we'll talk more about where we want to go with that. And
Sounds good.
yeah, we start with some of these things then and
Do the easy things.
Yeah. for sure. I've got,
I'm not gonna.
okay, we'll do our space.
There you go.
This one too. That's the original plan.
You have 2 copies over there?
Yeah.
I have 2, you guys are. Yeah.
I do make sneaky edits.
I just need to type.
But I have the. I think this is the one we got from you guys last week. If that's the case, Dean, can I just erase the 1 and 7 from the digital copy and just send 15 since we're PAing these? Does that make sense? Okay. And I'll just, because we have a digital copy of 15, we're finishing that up.
One start and the other start.
Is it still, which one is it?
Our copiers kind of, that was some issues.
There were bad words.
I learned all the little nooks and crannies of that copier today, because I was like, what do you, there's still something.
That's a lot of work together.
Copy machine at Clover Ridge has a name. It's not a bad name, I can't remember what it's called. I'm pretty sure there was some bad ones that were sort of like suggested. It's like Mr. McCopy face or something.
Like Bodie with boat face.
Anyone? Is anyone itching to talk through the changes on 15?
Yes, that's you.
Yes, I can do a summary, but
I'm gonna get to it on my screen.
I think you definitely will. So basically, I'll go through, I'm riffing a little bit here, but we accepted the change of, so now placement. We added a statement, actually. I'll send this right after I talk about it, so you can read it, but on the first page, we added a caveat that basically asked that ESD prioritizes hiring permanent employees rather than contractors. Just saying like, that's the preferred route rather than a contractor, but contractors are obviously used to fill positions if necessary. And then we accept, and then there was an added statement on the case of layoff around retired and rehired employees. We went ahead and struck that section through.
Yeah, because, and I think this may have been, like some redundancy created by the formatting changes of having moved, hiring, retired employees from above down to this section. A lot of the formatting changed, so when I look back at our current CBA, it made a lot more sense. But it looked like it was repeated language, but I think it was because it was in two separate lists and it belonged in both of those lists, so. No big issue either way.
Yeah,
The other thing too is there was language originally in an MOU, which was appendix that that got put in, so it might have, yeah. Cause cause there was a whole MOU from last time about rehiring retired employees, so. We can do a quick look through.
and I just did a little ninja sharing, so you should all get the email of that.
So, and then most of what's in our counter proposal here, is in the section on placement. There are some pieces that we are bringing back in that were crossed out that we want to try to push for, as far as processes. But I think based on what we got back, we're headed in the same kind of direction with this. Which is, I mean, obviously, but changes in placement are going to happen. We struggled a little bit with like the language. I think involuntary had been crossed out in a couple places, but I think the language that we have now communicates. I think we settled on employee initiated change of placement and employer initiated change of placement to like make it clear, like this is what we're talking about in each situation and how it applies to our members and the bargaining unit. Yeah, so you'll see some things that have been in there already, some things that we're trying to narrow down, kind of the process that we believe should be followed to best serve members and best serve this organization. D under employer initiated change of placement, I think is where we did a fair amount of new language, basically building out a list of kind of the things that we believe should be included in a plan when there is a change of placement. So things like, route movement between two different classrooms or offices, workspaces, considerations of like ADA accommodations that may be in place or may be needed. Changes in job description, or basically like the question of, does their current job description still meet what they're doing now? Is there going to be additional training, mentoring, or orientation needed? And are there any changing like travel requirements? Basically, the idea there is not necessarily to throw up roadblocks so much as it is to make sure that there's a thoughtful process in planning for each of these things so that that member doesn't feel burdened with having to figure it out for themselves. And then we haven't done a whole lot with layoff and recall. In terms of changes, I think the only things I'm seeing are just formatting. Yeah, so I think that gives you the shape of what we've come back with for 15.
I think that you'll find the language is much more similar to the language in the rest of the documents too. I know that was something that was brought up last time. That was something that we did as well.
And then for that one, I'm catching up myself. Do we not have paper copies for that one because we were too late to get it printed? Okay, all right, but we have shared digitally, and that could be printed if the copier is cooperating.
I just don't push my luck today, that's all. Um,
So 16?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the full format of 16 for you. You're not going to see anything much different than what we did last time. It's just sort of putting things in. I'll sort of call out anything that we did update from there. But really try to go through and do some cleanup to simplify what we're talking about here as well. So let you grab a copy so you can follow along.
It's up to you, I'm just gonna save himself.
Okay, so walking through from the top on here, you'll see we're striking out 6 through 21. Not that we don't believe COLAs belong in here. We're just going to format that slightly differently down below. As we list salary schedules here, we're gonna use this format to articulate who goes on what salary schedule, rename the salary schedule so they're not so hard to figure out who's where. So we're organizing these by discipline. We'll have the separate schedules that are in there. Then we will list per schedule that's on there, the I'm gonna refer to them as the across the board increases on here. I'd like to get away from the term COLA. Because number one, these aren't COLAs. They have nothing to do with inflation. They are percentages that we set here. And I also, to the extent that we are going to do a different percentage on one schedule to another, I don't know how I would tell one person, you need a 3% differential on here and you need a 5% differential for the same thing. So using across the board as the terminology to say that's how much we're going to increase the schedules by. So the 4 schedules we're going to name on here are the interdisciplinary professionals, the licensed therapeutic professionals, the school psychologist, and the licensed therapy associates. Then down below, we are going to define who goes on each one of those schedules. So for interdisciplinary, that'll be TSPC licensed staff and non-TSPC appropriately degreed, which is how they are referred to earlier in the CBA. Appropriate degreed consultants, liaisons, and coaches. Licensed therapeutic professionals, that is going to be what we're proposing for SLPs, OTs, PTs, and we didn't have it on there last time, but the audiologists and the registered nurses on same schedule. School psychologists still on a solo schedule there, and then the licensed therapy assistants. The SLPs, the OTAs and PTAs, we had SLPs on a separate schedule, but they were the same exact amount. So we're just making it easier and combining it all on one schedule. We don't really intend to separate those. Okay. Moving on down the line, that's also as we get to lines 71 through 80 some odd on page 3. Again, that's all language that was trying to articulate what we believe we captured up above. On 95, we looked at what you had. I don't think we had this in our last one, but the longevity stipend at 1,600, we're gonna put in what you had and agree with you that it really doesn't make sense to parse it out by column. Okay, stipends, we're moving down to a section below here, so we're gonna start at 104, and we're going to list off all the stipends that come in. So the first one we're gonna start out is the bilingual language stipend, so we're leaving in your language on there with the 2,400. We are changing the word conversant to fluent, it's a different standard that's on there. We are going to exclude sign language on there. Still in the proposal. And we're adding in the clarifier on there that to qualify, you have to complete a language proficiency, and that's standard of what we're currently doing right now as well. The skill stipend, we had the proposal on there for the O&M, and we're gonna put that in ours as well. We think that's a good thing to put in and recognize. The targeted sign-on stipend, this is just moving stipends all to one place, so I believe this is lifting exact language out of,
It was an MOU.
right, out of MOU and just lifting it formally into here without changes. And then as we get to further down on there, we'll go down to 182. And this is what we saw in terms of mileage before that I presented to you 2 sessions ago. So this is the cleanup. This is the language that we had should be virtually exact of what you saw before. The only thing that we're really adding on here that I think you haven't seen is that line 188 and 189. It's the articulation that all mileage reimbursements have to be submitted within 60 days of travel date. And again, that's a federal requirement because beyond that date, it is a taxable sum. It's no longer reimbursement. So we want to make sure that it's stated in here. Mobile workforce. I'm going to lean on you on this one, Christina. We're going to throw it to you eventually.
Yeah.
One,
I think we
200.
just.
Yeah.
We just same essence of the language, just restructured it slightly. So it's still a collaboration, but it was, yeah, we just reworded it a little bit to, I think, exemplify more of how it's actually being done with administrators. So it's a subtle change. Just rearranging words a little bit.
Okay, and then we are striking the stuff about Lincoln County on there because we're gonna include it in that home base assignment language. So this is home base assignment down on 219, home base assignment and travel stipends. So this articulates the assignment of the home base, which is defined as reporting to a place 3 or more days per week. In the case that you don't actually report to some place 3 or more days per week, your supervisor sends a central location to your travel pattern. We are articulating here that mileage reimbursement is, you cannot do mileage reimbursement for travel between home and your home base. Again, that's a federal requirement. You can't do it as a reimbursement. It's a taxable amount. And then we struck the language about commute time here. It was being defined, but we weren't doing anything with it. So it just looked like it was out of place. So we took that out. And then we'll get 234 down. This is the table that you saw last time on here, and this will be the stipends for individuals who are at a component district building that LBL does not occupy or control. So it's for those individuals, it's intended for those individuals where you thought in terms of this looked like what was home base for you on here, and you're asked to be in report every day to Harrisburg. So these would be the stipends that go in. I know the question was asked last time. An estimate of what this is, best estimate that I can get my hands around at this point in time. Stipends in and of themselves would probably range between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. We have to pay payroll taxes and everything else on top of that as well. So that ends up being a $50,000-ish expenditure for the ESD.
Can I ask a question? Rob?
Yeah.
When you're talking about the non-component buildings.
Yep.
Can you give me an example of like what that is? I'm just
Sure, what we're really trying to do is distinguish that this is not for Crawfordsville, where somebody knows they're reporting into Crawfordsville. So this is specifically when somebody is reporting every day to one of our district's buildings on there because they're assigned to it on there. So it's a component school district controlled building that we are not occupying. So again, in the case of our EIECSE program out in Lincoln County, that is a Lincoln County building on there, but we actually occupy and control it. So we're just trying to really articulate which ones it goes to. The differences. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there will be some questions about that, so, people who work at Crawfordsville or Sweet Home in EIECSE would not be eligible for the stipend.
Correct, because they would be
Yes.
assigned to that building. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the stipend crossing over sign language, please?
Sure. If you want to take your money.
Oh,
So, we did a lot of research on the O and M and then also the ASL and, the O and M being, beyond what, a teacher of the blind or visually impaired. It's beyond what you need to do to be able to be a teacher there. And with the ASL is required in order for someone to even get that licensure. So that was the delineation between the two.
I know there was, SB 731 was passed that districts need to compensate sign languages the same they do as bilingual spoken languages, so that was just my question. Or how that plays into that.
We'd have to look into that.
What was it? But not California Clean Slate Act. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I think, the only other thing that was on here, that's it. That's it. So that's 16. And then as we move to 17, which is simpler. So we're striking out lines 2 and 3. They're just naming periods of time that are on here that aren't relevant anymore. We're taking in lines 11 through 13, we're just taking the reference off to what the contract year is going to be anyway. It's always going to be self-referential, so we don't feel like we need to list the dates in there. We are articulating the cap is a total on an increase, so we're listing what the cap is total rather than how much it might increase by. And you'll see that 25, 26, and 26, 27 as we had said before. Down in the HSA, so down in 33 through 35, the amounts that are in here that were proposed exceed what the current deductibles actually are in there. So we're looking to line this up with the deductible of the plan. So that's the amounts that we're putting in here. We said we were going to strike the opt-out, so you see the opt-out stricken in there. We accepted your strikeouts that go through the rest of F, strikeout of H, and then just re-lettered I to H. That's 17. Oh, yes, so we sent the schedules along, and so again, what I'm doing for you on there is I'm just sending the 190-day schedule so that we're not buried in all the multiple things. We're also sending you, these schedules are a pain to update, and we just redid what they're named and who goes where to 4 different schedules on there. So I built something for myself to be able to easily populate those on there. I'm just going to give you a copy of the same tool so that if you want to do it, you don't have to go through and do all that yourself. And that way we know that the calculations are parallel in the way that they were going. So we're just gonna send the tool over to you as well. If you got questions on it, just let me know.
It's attached to the email with the links.
Okay.
I think we'll need some time to caucus and process through some of this. but I do want to say at the table that we really do appreciate, having paper copies and full official, counter proposals, things that we can TA. And it gives us the ability to process, in a way that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. So for instance, another piece of this procedure, and I'm just explaining it because it's possible, like, members may not understand it fully too. But I want to make sure that everybody's understanding, like, this allows us within the package proposal now to respond to the entire thing. So you can anticipate seeing counter proposals on 6 and 1. All right, and I think we should probably go to caucus. Let's see. 6:45.
Yeah.
That sounds doable.
I just realized what my question was. I'm so sorry.
Please go.
I just want to clarify about mileage. The part that was struck, the mileage reimbursement rate shall be made current and updated at all times.
Oh,
was
yeah,
crossed out.
sorry, I missed that portion on there. The issue with that one is more administrative than anything else, is that it's actually really difficult to switch it in the middle of the year because then we have to monitor which forms are coming in at which time. I think we tried to do that in the past and it ends up being a bit of chaos. So we want to stick with the original, just we set the rate at the beginning of the year. The rate doesn't change by a really large amount in the middle of the year on there, so we don't think that it represents an economic burden. It's something that if we can get ourselves to an automated system, it would be something that we could consider putting in, but while we're still in the current paper method of submitting the mileage reimbursement on there, it's just a little bit too tough for us in the back of the office.
So it's getting updated at the beginning of the school year every year in accordance with the federal rate updates.
Correct, it's updated then, the federal rate updates in January, and then we don't pick up again until the next July.
Just to
Yeah.
Yeah, so it used to change in January and forms would change and everything, and then it stopped changing. That was my only question.
All right, yeah, 6:45. See what we can get done. Tegan? Oh, yes, not exactly bargaining table stuff, but we do have some questions. We are running our officer elections for our education association. And OEA has helped us to set up their voting system. We tried to send that through work email, and it doesn't look like it made it through. I checked spam and that kind of thing. And so the question we're coming to the table with is like, is there something that prevents that from going through? I'm assuming because it came from like an outside email or that kind of thing.
Yes, so
Okay.
if the email address domain does not have their security certificates set up properly, we automatically block all email from that domain. So my guess is that's what happened. If you send me like the domain, I can
Okay,
get it
yeah.
greenlit.
And I think we're trying to get that information. Okay,
Okay.
cool. Awesome. Well, maybe away from the table, we can talk a little bit more about that. We can do it through personal emails as well. We thought that would be the easiest way to get it to people quickly.
Yeah, as long as I know the domain, I can have my team greenlight it to the system. So.
All right, that's that. Yeah. So that's.
Oh my God.
I had. Brilliant. For the next time, which is.
Thank God.
We go with all of the letters.
There was
the time. That was always.
Just look at it, yeah, like a bullet, right? You could do that, make it look ugly and then do it because it makes sense instead of going back and changing.
Yeah.
Letter every time.
It's so old.
Our Wi-Fi didn't work, or our internet didn't work in the basement.
Kind of like.
And so, yeah, we're all in the basement, like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think we're ready. So we're working on getting a digital copy of a counter proposal on working conditions. We have processed y'all's counter proposal and did some processing around the conversation that we had at the table during our last session. And we're feeling ready to take that out of the package and move forward. And so we've got a counter proposal, we got the digital. If it can be printed, that would probably be helpful. And yeah, we'll talk about some of the movement and changes that we've made. And then our hope is that you know, if y'all have questions or ideas, that we can continue to have conversation and or proposals.
As I see him hustling, do you want, we have counter to 15.
Sure.
We were, the copier was nice that. Lisa. I'm gonna pass those down, so. And I'm gonna send the electronic version right now. So under B, that added statement, we spent quite a bit of time talking through this. And it was kind of convenient that Article 1 was also right in front of us that we had just T-Day'd. And what we were struggling with was what is very now, what we feel is clearly articulated in Article 1. This kind of made it hard to, just the way this was written, and we tried to rewrite it a couple times, and we were like, you know what? We spent so much time getting it right in Article 1. We felt like the statement was made in Article 1 that is what our priority is. And just the way this was written, and I don't know how many versions of it we tried, we just finally came to the point of like, let's not add something here that would then either conflict or get confused with what we have articulated in Article 1. So that's why we struck it. Because we felt like, and if you.
We agree with the spirit of it.
Yes.
It's just that we didn't want to have it referenced in two different articles, and we felt it was adequately summed up in the other article, and then like the timeline, like if the job has to be posted for 30 days before we can look for a contract.
Yeah, it just felt like,
Yeah,
More articulated.
yeah,
that,
because we had spent.
yes, that emergency, thank you.
So that's where that came from. I added, there were a couple small things that were clerical corrections in the first draft that got missed in the draft that you sent back, so I just re-added them. So that's what you see in 2, and then the little subs. And then on page 2, lines 27 through 29. You had added that. That's not our current practice, like rehired employees can't bump current employees, and we didn't, I don't know, we just wanted to clarify that we didn't think that you guys wanted that. But it keeps coming back because it was original language. And I don't know who crossed it out first at this point.
I think that's what we're looking at before
Okay.
too.
So I recrossed it out because I thought that that's, well, it was either you or us that suggested that at some point, but the intent is that rehired, retired employees should not bump a current employee. That's
Isn't
the
that what it's saying though? Rehired, retired employees have no recall rights. And will be released prior to all similarly licensed regular employees.
Let's see, if that was one that and I was going back and forth between the two documents.
Yes, this is the correct language. I
Yes.
think I struck it in another document.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Probably, but
Yes.
I think we erased it in one place because it was in two places, and then y'all probably erased it in
And
that
we
other
just-
place thinking it was there.
I think we all agree in spirit that we're here.
It should
Yeah,
be in there.
exactly.
It should be in there
If
once.
it's
Yeah.
in there,
Yeah.
So we need to.
this is where it's supposed to be
Okay.
This is where,
and not crossed off.
Mhm.
We want, yes,
okay, so I'm gonna just put a note.
At least we don't have the 10 different colors we did last time.
yes.
More than 10.
Uh, So then we get into the placement section. We were good with, the introductories. We really also liked your, shift of the language too, of employee and employer initiate, like, we just liked how that sounded. So kudos to that. That's a really good, way to describe. Sounds way better than involuntary and voluntary.
Totally.
So we were good with the initial statement. A was good. B, we just clarified what current practices, people don't always have to apply fully. I know historically it has been that you have applied, you had to interview, blah, blah, all that. We're a little more agile than we used to be in that, and that we recognize sometimes, there's one person that wants the job in another place, and we want to honor that. We're gonna hire somebody internally for that. So that process is, I just wanted to broaden it out to be a little less, you have to apply kind of thing. Because sometimes it's just a matter of expressing interest in the letter of interest versus a full application. So the word apply is kind of like, yes, there might be a need to fully apply if it's an external posting.
Or if there's multiple people.
Yeah. or there's multiple- Yeah. So we just did a little bit of, if it's not as tightly written here, it's a little more open in how it can happen. So. And then, we basically took A and B, combined them a little bit and did a little rewording with the second half of your, how you stated it. Trying to keep the essence of like, employees will be notified as soon as possible. Providing an opportunity to meet, within those 10 working days. And then providing a written summary of the change. So I think it's still the essence of what you had in there. We just did a little bit of rewording. So then the new B, we were good with that statement. And then in D, the beginning of it, we kept, we just also aligned, you had days versus up above, it said working days, we just matched that. And then, it said transfer and we switched it to change of placement to try to keep it going, which as much as possible. And then we didn't want to. This felt like it was, we totally understood what you're trying to get at around the kinds of things that would be part of this plan. But we also wanted to give the flexibility to both the employee being transferred and the supervisor to collaboratively create that plan together. So it wouldn't, for every person, if it's Jules or, if it's morning, your plan might look a little different than what's in your plan. And so we wanted to articulate that the plan would include the specific information covered in that meeting. So, if Jules needed certain things and his supervisor needed certain things, then they could create that plan. But then morning, your supervisor, you might make a little bit of a different plan. So we understood what you're saying with it. We just wanted to be able to give a little more latitude to the employee and the supervisor.
And the included but not limited to doesn't allow that latitude.
It just, I didn't, sometimes that language, when you give language like that, it creates blinders for people and they think, oh, that's all I have to cover then. And so versus if you open it more broadly, and part of this too is I think we're gonna be doing some things internally with our hiring practices to build out learning plans for. We have a couple programs that use that concept right now where there is a learning plan for a new employee. So I think that we'll see more of this just naturally happening in our process for onboarding and that's not just a new employee, but like if somebody switches locations, that they would have that same level of learning opportunity. Doing some work with Pathfinder to build that. And then, we just wanted to clarify or confirm that regardless of whether it was employee chosen or employer chosen, we still wanted to honor that you get 2 duty-free days to do that. We aren't gonna differentiate whether an employee chose the change or we chose the change.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a problem here, but if this stated later, it literally would read that we would dock pay for 2 days.
Yeah.
If it was employee chosen on there, that's clearly not the intent, and we're not worried about it for us, but not something you want later in the contract.
We didn't want it to conflict with the above language either, where if an employee said, I work in Clover Ridge, I would like to move to Dixie.
right.
We'd say, great, but we're not paying you to do the move. We would like to offer those 2 days for that. as well.
It kind of does happen, but. Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't want to differentiate between whether an employee chooses it or we choose it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. I think that'll really help some people.
When everything was the same because of this.
So we created, there was. A D needs to be turned into a C, but we can have. Yes.
Yeah, at some point we'll catch up.
Yeah, I think, maybe there's something we can learn from the formatting, because
Yes.
it's no fun going back through and changing all the letters, like. Maybe we could build a process in the future around taking out all letters at the start of things and then putting all the letters back in where they make sense.
We could just do it in Microsoft Word and all this will be fixed.
I was ready to send it. I could not get rid of this blank first page. I just got.
Oh, yeah, I've had that happen before. I
That was super, but
totally understand.
Uh-huh.
So.
Doesn't.
Exactly. Or you put a table in and then there's always that spare extra page.
so, I don't know if you want me to just kind of talk through. What we update, I might be to talk through. the
Yeah.
Changes.
Yeah, and other folks jumped in.
Yep.
I think as we go through.
So I may have missed a couple because I was doing it on the fly, but tried to make ones that we adjusted from the previous counter to be bolded. And ones that were left from our last counter, still underlined but not bolded. That may not be the exact case, but for the big sections, it is the case.
So
So,
we did delete at least one section entirely.
yeah, so stuff that we removed, I just went ahead and deleted it. We had added it with first counter. So if you go to, there's no changes on page 1. On page 2, I think we left in this statement on consultation with employees, or with the employee rather, with final approval from the program supervisor. And that was the only change on page 2.
So that's accepting the change.
Yes.
Yeah, that was copied from what you guys had proposed.
Oh, okay. In consultation. I should say the employee, is it okay if I just,
I think-
That the.
Are you guys still waiting to get it?
No, I didn't get it.
We got it.
Okay, okay, sorry, Joe, I just wanted,
No, it's
everyone
okay.
looks over there like they were all waiting for us.
Oh, so no, it's all good.
Okay, Joe, I will not take it personally that I did not get it.
I'm sorry. Christie. I didn't mean to leave you out. So we left that part in. And then at the bottom of that page, I think that was original to the first counter. Is that right? The scheduling of the 220 work days. I don't think we changed anything there. That's just accepted.
We accepted that. yes.
Yeah. So then on C work week, I don't think we had any new changes there. Under D commute time, we left that statement about employees who are assigned to travel to work sites outside of their headquarters shall be compensated for any time beyond 8 hours. When we went to E, adjusted schedule. This, we added in a little bit of smithing about basically trying to clarify if an employee is having to adjust their schedule for work, that they have time within those subsequent 4 weeks to make up for that time essentially. So we picked that time and we said weeks, so it wasn't like limited to the month. It's just like the weeks after.
And here we also went back and forth with like wording. We had put in chooses before as far as working beyond one's contracted hours. Basically to reflect the idea that no one should have to work outside of their, it shouldn't be mandatory for anyone to work outside of their time. And then I think y'all had changed it to has to work. And we have moved to works. And I think that takes up out any debate about whether it's mandatory or it's chosen. If a person works outside of their normal work week, that's when that adjustment to their schedule is made.
And the reason that we're proposing more time is, as you know, if somebody has to adjust their schedule in the current week and already has their week scheduled out, it's very, very hard to take that time in the same week. Just
The purpose of those
the
subsequent
purpose of the
4 weeks, yeah. And then. In the closure conditions, a lot of this, we adapted the language from the counter, is that right?
Mhm.
So a lot of that we added in.
Can we just stop for a
Yeah, yeah.
second? So on lines 3 through 7, that's still highlighted.
Yeah, I wasn't perfect with my highlighting.
Okay,
this
I
time.
It's okay, I
Yeah.
can go through and
Just want to double check, that's all.
put them side by side.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, just because we were doing this in the.
Yeah,
caucus
No,
room.
we were doing the
Yeah.
same thing.
Apologies if that makes it more confusing. So a lot of that is accepted. We kept in that statement, I believe, about employees using their personal leave if they believe that the condition's too hazardous to go, and so we kept that you all added. And then that also that statement about if there's a closure day, the employee will be billed on their own personal leave. We left in on G, we went ahead and left in the caseload limits with the description of what happens when people go over the caseload limits. And a lot of that was in reflection of that we do genuinely believe that the cap is like really well respected here, and it just like helps codify that. Not that we see it as like so many people are going over the cap, but just that, you know, LBL does a good job of that already, and we just want to see it keep doing a good job with that. So below here in H on IFSP progress report days, that's kind of a change of what we had. It was IFSP/IEP before. This is just really targeted towards the ECSE specialists and ECSE SLPs. So it's just allowing them 2 consecutive days, 3 times a year to just work on those progress notes. So we just tried to tighten that up and make it really specific to their need there.
And before you go on, we did,
Yeah.
there was the section there about the additional support. That is a section that's now missing. We took it out.
Yeah.
The
like
additional
aides.
staffing
Yeah.
for classroom classes of 9 or more in size. Although there are definitely significant concerns, as I've shared before, about concerns about safety when we get to that point. We do recognize that that's a substantial issue with funding. And so that's one place that we chose to remove flex.
And thank you. Please call them out too, like the ones that we took out, just because I have all the edits on here, so I would know. And then in I, the service provider teacher planning time, I believe that's pretty similar to what we had before. Is that right, Maureen?
Yes.
Yep, so that's pretty similar. The adverse health and safety incident in K is pretty different. So, and I know we had a good discussion about that last week. So we tried to kind of make that mirror the language that we agreed upon in professional development, where there's essentially access for a person in a fund. So if, you know, an employee does experience an adverse health or safety incident, which kind of like we talked about, everyone has got some exposure to that regardless of their program or site. This kind of gives some guideline as access to not just any professional, but a specific professional that's tied to LBL. So there's kind of that sense of support within the organization.
Known entity.
Known entity, yeah. And just kind of spelling out that they could come and meet with a group of people that were impacted or meet with an individual, just kind of depending on the needs. So we tried to just make that less broad and a little more targeted and specific as to addressing that need. It's kind of a similar story with personal expression. We removed our previous statement on that. We know that a lot of that was addressed in non-discrimination, but we just tried to make a little bit more simple language that just really shares that the personal life of employees is not a concern. We know that's that's the case, but we just tried to word it in a way that shows that without having any causing any legal hiccups for management. And then vacancies, that is all struck through. We accept all that strike through, and the hiring of retired employees, we accept all of those strike throughs as well. And
They were moved to 15.
yes, so,
Medicaid came out too.
oh yeah,
that's
and we
right.
removed the section on Medicaid. Thank you. That's gone. Is there any question? I know that was a bunch and I semi-articulated that, but
Yes, what the number of progress report days is right now.
3. So instead of having 1 day 3 times a year, it would be 2 days 3 times a year. Based on the fact that in the survey that I did, most people were able to complete half or less in 1 day. So they would most likely still need to continue, but it would go a long ways towards being able to get them out to families in a timely manner. Which is important to families. They really like those progress reports.
and it was specified as ECSE too, because Morning was telling us that EI has their set up a little differently, how they do progress notes, so.
They do 6-month reviews.
Yeah.
And it's typically part of a home visit, and not that they don't have paperwork too, but it's done in a different way. And we did talk about case managers in other programs as well, and has some ideas about how it might be able to be addressed, but it didn't necessarily fit in the working conditions.
Yeah.
say we appreciate you guys, and the conversation we had. We had a lot of thoughts about the conversation last time too, and it's good to see that. I think we are very close to having similar thinking on most of these things. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
That was kind of our hope tonight too, is that, there's something to map on, like those things we talked about last week.
Absolutely.
Do you have any questions about any of the economic stuff that he presented, or did you not have, like, if you didn't have time to?
We do have a couple that came up.
Okay.
We wanted to give you all a counter on 6, because we put a lot of time into that.
We appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah,
We have a question about the,
Oh, I'm sorry, just I'm get people, members watching or seeing, they have a hard time hearing, if you could speak up a little bit.
oh, okay. It wasn't on this one, well, yes, actually, it has to do with the longevity stipend, but it's not, on the salary schedules, it's somewhere else. There's just a couple of, sentences that talk about the longevity stipend, and like if you were hired before a certain date, that you get the longevity stipend on your
There's one person left in the agency. That would still be eligible to do that.
Okay, so why after February 13th, do you have to be at the top of your pay scale for 4 years before you qualify for longevity stipend?
Presumably, at some point in time in the past, the contract was renegotiated to that 4-year thing on there. And individuals who were already in there were grandfathered in. So at this
If they were
point,
less than 4.
right, so at this point, there's only one more person left at the agency that is before that date that isn't already topped out and receiving the stipend. And then everybody would be in there, but it's a obviously very long ago.
Yeah, good. I'm assuming it would have been 3 or 4 cycles back.
Yeah.
If the date listed here is 2013, it probably happened around that time.
Yeah.
Probably 2012.
We looked at the date because we were like, oh, I wonder if we can get rid of that, and it was like, no, we still have an
Still one
employee
more
that
person, yeah.
fits under that exception.
I think another one that came up too on the. What's now called the licensed therapeutic professional scale. And a number asked us about this, where I think this was a SLP, if you're on like MA 30 column. Where would you go then in the subsequent scale? Like, would you go down to just MA?
You go to MA would be the default. So
Okay.
you'd have to go to MA 45 to make it over to the final column.
Okay,
And the MA, if you look at it on there, the MA on that schedule is still north of the MA 30.
at the MA 30,
Yeah.
okay. The other question we had was on the mileage rate, and somebody might be able to say this better than me, but were the changes to the, proposed rate, do those apply to classified and admin as well, or is this just for licensed?
Right, whatever you do is covered on here, but agency wide, we do the same thing.
That'd be applied agency.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I ask that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like I said, if we ever get to an online system that can track it in real time on there, we don't have an issue with the concept. It's just the administrative stuff of paper. And
And I think Cordes already mentioned a piece about the bilingual stipend, but yeah, just that, yeah, that's something that we feel is important to look into.
Yeah.
It's on our list.
Since it passed, what, less than a week ago, we just
Yeah.
had to.
Yeah,
check
just
with our,
background on it, just, being a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, you just, sign language is generally not recognized or given the same level of respect or recognition, and so, if you read the intention behind SB 731, it is try to bridge that access gap and recognition of it as a legal. language, so.
You had any other big questions that we wrote about? Rebecca, did you want to speak to the COLA stuff or?
I think it'll be for, our counter, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Only thing, if we're like, if we're just talking about strategy stuff for meetings, we come up several times that people are having hard time hearing. Tim, do you know if there's like a way? Like, I know when I taught online, I connected a little mic. You have, or like, if we were to,
See what I can figure out.
okay, yeah.
Like the ones that you use sometimes during the board meetings.
Yes.
I've been on the receiving end, like.
Yeah, sorry.
Virtual
Yeah.
during board meetings, so we totally get it.
Yeah, okay.
I have like a snowball mic, but I don't think that's meant to cover the whole room.
Cause I can come a little bit earlier, like into this room, next Thursday, if you have something that I need to like put on.
I would definitely think so.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything we needed to go over for year 12?
I think, so it sounds like we'll be ready. You'll have a chance potentially to look at 15.
Yeah.
Come back on that. We'll have a chance to look at 6, come back on that. Are those the last 2 that are
Yeah. 8. Or is that, we have 10 more?
Yeah, it's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Okay. Well, then I think we'll be talking, we'll do those, maybe exchange at the beginning and then. You know, talk money the rest of the time and have some discussions about that. So,
All 9 minutes early?
I just want you all
Last
to
time,
know
Bouncing out.
that there's 3 baby osprey, they're all still alive, and it's all good, so you all know that.
It took me a second to catch up to what you were talking about.
Baby osprey, Sandy Canyon.
Sandy Am Canyon.
Did you know that one of the elementary schools, I was there for a transition meeting, they have an otter cam?
Oh.
Is it,
No.
This is on in every classroom in San Diego.
yeah, I was in the school, and I don't think it was Sunrise, was it Lafayette, Periwinkle, I don't know. I had transition meetings everywhere, but there was a big screen like in the hallway, and there was a kiddo that stopped and was like, where are the otters? Cause it's only on like one part of it and it's not always visible, but I guess it's a big part of what their school does.
I used to have a lot of California middle school and there are ducks that nest in the courtyard every year. And so, every year in the spring, there's little baby ducks and it's so much fun.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you all.